What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Smart TV. And with the new HSC English syllabus rolled out, a challenging subject arguably has got even more difficult. And so in today's video, I'm going to be sitting down with Anika, a student who just navigated the new HSC English syllabus and did so incredibly successfully. Anika scored 94%, a band 6 in both 2-unit and 3-unit English. And so in today's video, we're going to find out how she navigated the journey of HSC English with the new syllabus and some of her suggestions and advice for you. So welcome, Anika.
Thank you.
So first of all, congratulations. You did incredibly well, and I know it was a stressful journey.
Yeah.
So I guess to kick things off, how did you find the HSC English course?
I think definitely going in, it was a bit of a shock. I had always been someone who memorized their essays. And so having every teacher tell me you can't memorize an essay was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm in year 12, what do I do? But I did come to enjoy it. I liked the courses that my teachers had selected, and so I kind of just tried to put the worries behind me and kind of just power through as best as I could.
Thinking about it then, you've got this subject that you're taking, it's compulsory, and you've been told that the strategy that you used and has been used in prior years is like an absolute no-go. Yeah. Diving in to week, what did you start to do then week to week for HSC English in terms of trying to prep and set yourself up for the assessments and the exams that would come?
Week to week, I definitely kept up. Like if I had paragraphs due, I would keep up with those and like continually edit them. Like even if I had handed them in and gotten the feedback, I would just keep editing until I'd like drove myself crazy.
So a key thing here, just before you continue, is so your school, your teachers have given you a lot of writing to do. You were getting a paragraph a week, would you say, or two?
No, actually, my school, we were only allowed to hand in like one essay per term. So I only got like one sort of feedback per term, but I would do it like for Anna and sometimes just for myself. Most of the time just for myself.
Awesome. So what you're saying is that you took it upon yourself to go, okay, great, like I can't go down the rote memorized path of an essay, but I need to, as much as you might have wanted to at times, what I need to do is really work to construct and build strong paragraphs on my texts around different ideas and to try to cover as many ideas as you could possible so that if you got a question that was really specific or obscure, you'd be like, oh, cool, like I've covered something like this before, I know what to do. Yeah. So it sounds like you were writing paragraphs each week and you were doing so and then critically working to enhance them with a feedback loop through one of the Smart teachers here giving you support. Yeah. How much time was that taking per week?
I always had a bit of a leniency towards English. I think maybe because I would definitely start off with my T-tables and I would kind of separate it.
Okay, so there's a step before then.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I think I kind of skipped that. I would definitely start off with the T-table and I did kind of like quotes analysis and then like my own, I always link it back to context as much as I can because that's really important for English. And so I was doing that like one night and maybe that'd take me an hour because I'd be flipping through trying to find quotes, Googling on SparkNotes, like all that sort of stuff. And then writing the paragraph I think the T-table took me the longest because I would be quite thorough with my analysis.
And for those that don't know what a T-table is?
So T-table is this table where you have like 3 columns and the first column is a quote and then the next column is like technique. So you try and fish out as much as you can from that quote. And then the next column I did was like analysis/context. So I would analyze that in dot point form, bring in context as much as I could, and then have that as sort of my basis for the paragraph.
Awesome, and so then it's in essence a deconstructed paragraph by the sounds of it, which is why you're saying that took longer. Yeah. It took longer to get your T-table, but then when you were writing your paragraph, you were taking that and then pulling it together and finessing it and making sure that it would flow, essentially. Yeah. So then that's what each week looked like. It was building out a bit of a T-table. Yeah. And then applying it into a paragraph. And then would you get feedback on your T-tables or just feedback on your paragraphs?
I would just get feedback on my paragraphs because I write very much more succinctly in paragraph form.
And then you would take that feedback and push it back into your T-table? So if you realised, this wasn't great, actually there's a better technique here, or would you update it or?
No, I actually did it straight into the paragraph, but I had like if something didn't work out, I always did more quotes than needed in the Ttable. So I would have maybe like 5 or 6 per paragraph. And then if it just wasn't gelling, then I would go back and sort of re-look at things and bring in another quote.
So in other words, yeah, you were trying to have as many examples as you could from the text so that based on the question that you might get, the paragraph you were trying to write, you would have options. Instead of just going, bummer, I've only got 3 examples here. You go, well, I've got 6, which are the 3 best, in essence. So then you were doing this, you were writing your paragraphs. What did you do with those paragraphs then after you'd sort of finessed them and perfected them?
So essentially I would just kind of leave them until the next exam. Like I would work on them, but then I would use those paragraphs usually for my exam. But before going into the exam, I would essentially deconstruct them again to different questions and make them so ultra flexible that I could adapt them to anything. So it was essentially memorizing, but I did so in a way that it was like so bendy and I could just like instantly think of how I could manipulate that paragraph's idea, and they were broad enough to be able to let me to do that.
So rather than memorize like a single essay that might have been the thing in the past where you would have had 3 paragraphs memorized and that was it, what you were really doing is building like a bank of paragraphs over a range of different ideas that were all drawing from T-tables that had loads of quotes. So what that was giving you was really a huge library that you could remix based on questions that you were getting, and you would feel confident to go, oh, well, that's cool because I have that paragraph that I did, and it was actually really adjustable because I tweaked it this way, and then that's how you were prepping essentially. So that's your week to week. What did you then do as you got closer to the assessment or the trials, for example?
So before each English exam, I would try to memorize like 3, maybe 4, but then because I had other T-tables, I would make sure that I knew the other quotes and other analysis. So the first step for me was like memorizing it sort of and getting my head around it. So if you don't memorize, like it's just about really understanding it, like it deep in your bones, like you have to understand it that well. And then I would do this thing where I would do 4 practice exams before each exam. So the first 1 or 2 were open book, and then the next 2 I sort of did like partial and then definitely closed. So by then, like if I hadn't known the ideas, it was just like, I did, so.
Awesome. So you added, because I know we usually call it the rule of 3, you were just keen beans, added a 4th.
Yeah, well, I'm very superstitious, so it had to be the 5th one in my exam.
Hence the tweak to the strategy. Awesome. Now, in that, what was really interesting is that you would, and I think that's important to note, you would memorize a couple of your paragraphs, but you would also still refresh your understanding and memory of your T-tables. So that way, if you did get a question that didn't align to the 3 or 4 paragraphs that you had sort of bet on, so to speak, you were still comfortable and confident being able to take what you had for other ideas and other examples. Now, a question in that, which is, I think important to sort of get some clarity on, right, is, you would, it was writing, that was the main way of memorizing. You weren't doing sort of anything else. It was just like, great, I'm going to write as the way to get to memory.
Yes, that was my primary way of memorizing, but then actually like speaking aloud and teaching someone, I felt really helped. And I would go outside and I would like pace my driveway and read, like basically deconstruct the essay and sort of read it, not word for word, like that's a bit much, but like the idea within each sentence. And I would like say it enough times to then be able to repeat it back to myself and know that that was right.
Now, a question that comes from this is that means that you've got your paragraphs.
Yeah.
But obviously you get a question in the exam and you've got to develop a thesis, you've got to develop an argument, you've got to write an introduction. How did you develop that skill?
That was purely practice. I think, actually interestingly, for all of my essays, for each paragraph, each T-table, I always in the back of my mind had an overlapping theme or idea, but it was like really quite flexible, so I could integrate it into whatever I was saying. Maybe it was an idea regarding context or like sort of the main journey for each character, or if it's mod B. So I think the introduction was practice. I would do, if I didn't write out my whole essay each time, I would just practice with an introduction or just write dot points and write the thesis statement, then the topic sentence for each paragraph. And that helped me the best to like think on my feet and do it really quickly.
So it was just practicing it, right? Trying to go, how do I come up with a thesis statement? How do I integrate it? Yeah. And it sounds like you were then also building a little bit of a library of possible thesis statements that you could use because they were ideas you had about the text, essentially.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so then you did that, you'd go into the exam, did you find that timing was tight or difficult in the exam?
No, well, in each of my practice exams, I would time myself and I would give myself less time. So I ideally tried to aim with at least 5 minutes. Usually I think it's the 10% rule.
That's right,
Yeah, I worked with Rowan.
Applying all the strategies is great.
Yeah, so I would try and finish on time. And I think also it's a bit easier because when you go into the exam, you have the 3 sections. So I kind of strategized if I knew that my Mod B essay was inevitably going to be really long. And I tried to cut like in my head as much as I could. I would kind of try and take a little bit out of another section. But yeah, practice with timing is the best option.
Now, you were getting some support with one of our team at Out of Smart here. How did that help over the journey for English specifically?
Well, my school, as I mentioned, was really tough about taking in practice essays. So I was only allowed to hand in 1 per term. And I was someone who really relied on like constant feedback because I knew, like I'm a perfectionist, I knew that there was something that could be done to fix it. So that really helped mostly. Just having that constant feedback, I was able to send it to the tutor as much as I wanted, and that was awesome for me. But I think also just having like the one-on-one attention to be able to bounce ideas back off each other. Sometimes I wasn't entirely sure like, do you think this could work with my paragraphs or like with my different ideas, and just having that reassurance and this is another suggestion really helped.
Awesome. And do you have any final suggestions for students that are, taking HSC English? Any final advice or tips you would give them to give them the best chance of scoring a band 6?
I think, and I know you can avoid this as much as you want, but you just have to practice and try and do it in exam conditions as much as you can. Know your ideas, even if you don't memorize, that's completely fine, but have some backup options, know your ideas, but feel really confident going in that if you're thrown this really wacky question, then you can adapt it. And also another thing is I practiced with really hard questions that going in, if I had one of those in the exam, I would have just been so upset. But the fact that I had practiced with really hard ones made me more confident going in, what can be worse than that?
So making your practice harder than the real thing, because it sounds like you had harder questions, less time, but then it meant that when you went in, it was like, I got this.
Yeah.
I can do this. Awesome. So there you have it, guys. We've just heard from Anika and sharing a number of really practical strategies on how you can navigate the new HSC syllabus and the differences and the changes that have emerged for HSC English specifically. If you have any questions about how to prep and study for HSC English, leave it in the comments below. We'd love to help. Additionally, if you need any support in terms of tutoring and mentoring for HSC English, get in touch with us. We've got an incredible team that can also guide you through HSC English. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We'll bring videos every single week, so we will see you next week.